Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are on this fast forward planet, which is wrapped in so many layers of turbulence and change. I won't enumerate them. And part of this planet is Antarctica, place I never got to go. I went to the Arctic 4 times, including the North Pole, Greenland, but it's a really tough task as a scientist or as a journalist to go to Antarctica because it's just lots of logistics, lots of time. That's the main reason I never could fit it in was you don't just sort of hop in a plane and get to work. So Miles O'Brien and Kate Tobin, it's really exciting that you're able to join us live here. And how are you doing there, first of all?
We are having a beautiful morning and right along the Thwaites Glacier. I would say it's a good day so far.
So far, so good. Yes.
A little bit of gray weather, so we're not sure when we'll get the helicopters flying, and that's a key thing. But we've had we're already about 15 or 16 days in, and we're just getting to the edge of the meat of the matter, Andy. It takes a while, as you say.
Surprisingly, we are in the mountain time zone. It's a little hard to wrap your head around, but that's the longitude that comes right down to the Thwaites. So it's
Yeah.
8:30 in the morning here. It's overcast, but we're expecting clearing skies later today.
For a lot of people, it'd probably be surprising that you're there without gloves on and the like. What's the air temperature?
Right now, I just checked this morning. It is right around 0 Celsius, so 32 degrees. It is summertime here in Antarctica, and it is sitting here right now. It's like a winter day on Cape Cod where I live. But what I do notice, and Kate, check me on this, when the wind blows, it has a particular quality because it's coming off of the glacier, of course, and it is a biting wind.
It's a biting wind, and it's very dry here. A lot of folks in their rooms are running humidifiers to cut the dry air. But right now the wind is not really an issue, and I wouldn't say we're warm, but we're not freezing.
The humidity is 9%. So I think that's almost like a tinderbox.
So like they say in Arizona with the dry heat, this is a sort of a dry,
it's a dry cold, and it's all good.
Yeah. I want to get into the heart of the matter pretty quickly, which is, why this particular piece of ice is important. So hold on, I'm just going to set the scene here. I don't know if you guys can see, but I'm showing a map of the Antarctica, where this glacier is, and the color code there is for change in mass. So you can see a vast majority of the continent ice is stable. Some parts have actually been increasing because of increased snowfall that you get sometimes, but that area is not. And that's where you are right now, right?
Yeah, this is the object of scientific fancy, Andy, because of that very image. Over the past decade or so, watching those satellites, they're seeing basically the collapse of the West Antarctic ice shelf, and in particular, the Thwaites Glacier, which for several reasons we can get into, is melting by orders of magnitude faster than its neighbors. And the question is, why? Why is that happening? There's a series of things they think are at work, but you can only get so far with satellites. No one has ever put a thermometer right beneath the glacier at the so-called grounding line, where the glacier, the land, and the ocean meet. And that's what this mission is all about.
Right. Getting under there. And I think one of the big changes, I think, in the last decade or so is that ocean temperature. Everyone thinks about the warming of the climate as an atmospheric phenomenon, but here particularly, it was the warming, these waters that get in there underneath there and can really change the dynamics.
Yeah, I think what's happening basically, the supposition, and they got a brief bit of data 4 years ago. They dropped a probe in very near the grounding line, and the temperature reading they got was over 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So that should get your attention. But it isn't the comprehensive kind of work they want to do this time, including leaving what amounts to a weather station that will send back data continuously via Starlink satellite to provide kind of longitudinal temperature information. But basically, the glacier is being eaten away from below, and warm water has a much greater effect, as anybody intuitively knows than just warm radiation from the sun.
Right. I'm going to set the scene in a different way. You had sent a bit of video this morning, and let me see if I can hold on. Before presenting a screen, remove other media. I did remove other media. Oh, there we go. There's no producer behind the stage here.
Yes.
So here's this was drone imagery you guys took, I think a day or a day and a half ago.
Just yesterday. Yeah.
Yesterday. Okay. Well, here you go. I'm going to just play that a little bit. So here's the vessel. It's a South Korean ice-breaking vessel set up for research, and I'm just going to let it pull back and maybe describe. Kate, can you just describe what it feels like to be there and to capture this kind of imagery?
Sure. Well, we spent how long, Miles? 8 days traversing the Southern Ocean. Finally started cutting ice about 3 days ago, and it was a real experience to cut ice. It was sort of a 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of an experience. And overnight, we went from cutting ice. We woke up in the morning, and here we were. We weren't sure how close we were going to be able to get to Thwaites. Turns out we came right up to the edge. Our minds were blown. My mind was blown, I should say, at just the sheer beauty. And we're down a little inlet. So in that particular location, you look in 3 directions, and there are these enormous ice cliffs at the top. The ice shelf stretches out in front of you. It's an awesome vista. I don't know what I was expecting, but it surpassed it. On a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 15. Miles, what did you think?
Words escape me, and I seldom say that. I always have a word. In this case, yeah. I was taken aback. I was truly emotional. It made me misty-eyed as I looked at it and looked at the beauty of our planet and what we need to preserve. Frankly, what this is we're staring at the face of something that we should hang on to for a lot of good reasons. Andrew, what's really interesting about it is not only is it beautiful, it is the perfect place for this ship to launch the helicopters, which will take this equipment and the scientists to the so-called grounding line, where they want to poke a hole in the glacier, a hot water drill hole, and send down a whole armada of instruments to try to characterize what's going on with it. So we really have we're on the precipice of a piece of science history. No one's ever done this before. I hesitate to get too far down the road because there's a lot of other factors that can get in the way, including crevasses and weather and helicopters, breaking down, all kinds of things. But step by step, we're getting closer to some, really what has so far been scientific holy grail.
Yeah. And let's talk about drones for a second. It's been so transformative in filmmaking and in news work like this. This wasn't something you could get without a helicopter, 10 years ago. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 10. Am I wrong about that? But this is like a new way to see. It's sort of like, I think about the overview effect from the astronauts, but this is a sort of a mini version of that. Maybe if you could both talk about that as a liberating tool for the journalism you do.
Sure. I was not expecting to come to Antarctica on a Korean icebreaker, but as it turns out, the Arion, am I saying that right, Miles?
Yeah.
The Arion, the RV Arion, is equipped with 2 helicopters. They are snug in their hangar as we speak. As I say, the skies are supposed to clear a little bit later today. They're going to bring them out. They actually don't have the rotor blades on them right now, so they have to put those on. But having those 2 helicopters to ferry the scientists back and forth to the hot water drill camp, and also to fly a suite of instruments that are under the auspices of several different sort of leading minds in the field right now. Ice penetrating radar, different probes that they're going to insert down through thin sections of the ice, being able to move all across and crisscross the glacier they couldn't they couldn't do a fraction of what they want to do without those 2 helicopters. And so we're really on the leading edge of what's possible thanks to this vessel and those choppers.
And back to your point about drones, Andy, the first time I used a drone was back in 2013. I was doing a film in the Netherlands about how they fortify themselves against high water. Interestingly, there's a certain amount of parallels to where we are right now, cause and effect, I guess. And at the time, I wanted to hire a helicopter to get some shots of some of the dikes and levees, and it was well over $10,000 an hour to get a helicopter. They just completely would have broken my budget for a Nova. And so I started reading about these at that time. This is before DJI came out with anything. I read about these do-it-yourself drones, and I built one. And I went over to the Netherlands, and I started flying it and promptly put it in the drink. And so I managed to find a local hobbyist who was able to give me the footage. But I immediately understood. I mean, it was such a game changer. Even putting that thing in the drink was a fraction of the cost of an hour of that helicopter that I would have rented. And as you say, now it's just in our kit. Wherever we go, we have that ability to put the drone up and walk away with a shot like this while we're waiting for the helicopters to just get built. So it's changed journalism in a fundamental way.
I think you're right. I want to show another clip that you posted, and I'm encouraging people to post any questions as you're watching. There's a QR code in the upper left side. You can actually come in the studio to ask a question live if you happen to see that and have a QR reader. Hold on one second while I switch over here to while I do this, Kate, can you describe your background? I want to get each of you to just give a quick thumbnail of what led you to this particular kind of reporting.
I've been working with this guy right here for I think we're coming up on 33 years, Miles. Is that right?
33 years. How many partnerships in television last that long, right? Anyway.
It's unusual. So I was a producer with the CNN Science and Technology Unit for 18 years. And that covered science, technology, space, and environment. We kind of had to cover the whole waterfront there. I started as an intern in 1990, and I turned out the lights in 2008 when they showed us all the door en masse. After that, I did a fair amount of work with Miles on different PBS projects. I also did a 10-year series for the National Science Foundation called Science Nation. We did 335 video projects for them that focused on the different research projects that were funded by the NSF. That project ended in 2019, and I've been working on this and that, but largely with Miles on PBS NewsHour projects since then. And this opportunity to come to Thwaites was a once-in-a-career chance for me, and here we are.
Yeah. And Miles, your reporting has been essential on issues ranging from aviation safety to space to climate, et cetera. And you could have directed your skills in anything. Why are you here, and why is this the story for you?
Well, first of all, thank you for saying that, Andy. I do appreciate that. I'm glad somebody's watching out there. That's the whole idea. I got to tell you, it is hard to think of a more consequential story than what we're talking about here. We're talking about a glacier that is the size of Florida and about a mile high. It has enough water just in it once it melts, and it's pretty much inevitable it's going to melt. The question is when. Once it melts, it in and of itself will rise sea level the world over by about 2.5 feet. Now that's bad enough, but what it is like the cork in a champagne bottle. Once it's gone, the ice behind it is all below sea level, and it's going to just continue melting and emptying into the sea. And that represents in total, it's approximately 6 feet of sea level all in. So that's a significant thing to worry about. And while it's distant and there are very real and palpable issues going on in our country right now, which are just, difficult to even comprehend, as far-flung as Thwaites is, it's an issue that's going to come lapping up to our doorstep before too long. And so I felt, given what we've been doing in our careers, I felt like I had to come and report about this.
Yeah, and how do you handle, you know, the phrase "doomsday glacier" has come up a lot. Rolling Stone, Jeff Goodell, who has been on the show before, describing that his reporting. There have been some scientists who push back against that word, and it's this interesting issue, even with words like collapse. As a journalist, if we don't say by when, I feel like that can lead people to actually disengage, because they sort of start to pay attention, and then they realize, oh wait, you're talking about centuries, etc. How do you handle the sort of the communication challenge there? You know, talking about the realities of glacier dynamics and trying to get readers and viewers' attention, but at the same time staying true to the data, including the uncertainty. It's a real tough challenge. I mean, I've written about this for a long. I've written about that challenge along with the climate challenge.
It's the single greatest struggle we face writing about climate. I'm sure Kate will weigh in on this.
Yeah.
You know, where do you find the balance between appropriate notification of the reality, and that, of course, leading potentially to alarmism, which leads, as you say, to apathy, and the other side of it, which is there are solutions on the shelf that we could deploy right now if we had the political will. Right. To stop what seems inevitable now. And so I think the thing that's been absent in a lot of our coverage over the years, so yeah, I think you will agree with this, is that I think, you know, journalists historically have been have pulled their punches when it came to talking about solutions. Either it was viewed in the newsroom as, you know, PR varnish, or they didn't fully understand the subject enough to properly evaluate an idea that might be a solution to it. And so we've historically haven't done a good job of telling people that there are ways to address this problem and get a handle on it, and thus manage the apathy. And so I wherever I can, I try to inject that into the story. Kate?
No, I agree with that. And it's a story that has been on the radar screen at one level or another. Climate, what we used to call global warming, now climate change, you know, since the 90s. And as the IPCC came out with successive reports that increasingly flagged this, you know, as a potentially existential threat for our society, with greater levels of certainty, we've had to kind of ramp up, you know, how we report on this. And certainly for many years got you know, there was some inertia in the business to try to tackle this particular project. But I think that as the science has progressed, it's pretty clear that you know, we need to report on this on a very regular basis. And coming to a place like Antarctica, there just aren't that many opportunities to get down here. There's a very narrow slice of the year when it's possible to come. Right. And I think it's great that we are able to come and, you know, to contribute some real sort of boots on the ground, boots on the ice reporting to the story, and, you know, hopefully advance the conversation.
You know, something that came to mind just now when Miles was talking about the challenges of this story amid everything else that's going on. How strange is it to be there as Venezuela is going through its transition, and the violence is erupting in Minnesota? It must, when I was in the Arctic, there's this sense of utter detachment from that aspect of the planet. The only other time I felt that was when I was in my 20s, and it was the crew on a sailboat, circumnavigating sailboat in the middle of nowhere, and you'd get in a port and go, oh, I realize all these things are going on in the world. Just what does that feel like?
Well, in the same manner which we are talking to you as if we're sitting at our desks at home, we are connected to the world in ways that perhaps are more than you'd like on a trip like this. A lot of old salts have been on these trips a long time would tell you that the amount of bandwidth that we all have is for them a two-edged sword. They kind of miss exactly what you described, that ability to get away from it. The truth is, for me, Andy, you got to be careful what you wish for. I've always wanted to go to Antarctica, and then I realized the trip that I could get, and a good one, was a 2-month trip. Well, to be honest with you, if I didn't have the capability of having some connection to, keep stirring the pot on all my business, I'd be hard pressed to just walk away for 2 months.
Yeah.
And so this has enabled, number one, the ability for me to just be here. Number two, to be able to tell the story in real time as we are. A few years ago, this would have been impossible. We would have been on a very scratchy, we used to call them, video phones or an Inmarsat signal, very, very limited bandwidth. And now with the ability with high-speed satellite internet connections, the world is a very small place indeed.
God, you're reminding me, when I went to the North Pole in 2003, all I had was a sat phone, and really slow, the kind of warbly modem. And an editor back on the homepage of the early days of the New York Times homepage, she said, "Hey, let's do a Q&A." And so we did it, Ask Me Anything, but it was her reading to me, voice reading to me the questions. I would tell her the answer. She would type the answer and put it on the webpage. So this is I haven't experienced this world that you're able to, where you're kind of doing both things at once. That's kind of cool. So keep it up. There's some good questions that have come in. Hold on a second. Here's one about the journalism. Keegan Wesley in LinkedIn asks, does the structure of the story influence the alarmism apathy space? For example, is beginning with the solutions in the time frame needed to implement them, and then ending with why it's helpful? Sort of putting that up front, I guess, is the question.
So help me understand the questions. Putting the solutions up front, is that the question?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it just as we have to be careful not to dwell too deep into the alarmism, we need to also not get too far down the rose-colored glasses department too, because we can become victim of public relations and well-meaning, or perhaps not well-meaning, corporate interests that are trying to sell us a product. So, it's a bit of a house of mirrors as we navigate through these stories, because it is so complex. It does involve, it has global implications, and it's often difficult to see cause and effect with something as slow moving as climate. So we're kind of forced to call balls and strikes on stories when we really don't. It's like it's before the pitch has even been thrown at us, right? It's very the time frame is so out of sync with our deadlines, and so sometimes we're going to end up alarming people too much, and sometimes we're going to giving them too much hope for a solution, and in the end, in both cases, we are wrong. But I think if we try to be honest brokers about that and are transparent with people about our uncertainty about it, I think that leads to a greater degree of trust with our audience. And obviously journalism needs to work on building a trust relationship with this audience. That's a big problem writ large.
Yeah, and I just put up on the screen the international science project to try to understand this glacier better. Can all be explored at thwaitesglacier.org, and you can see the spelling there. It's an international collaboration, lots of incredible science going on all aspects of this glacier. Now, there are some more questions here, thankfully.
Well, I should tell you why you're fishing for a question, Andy, on the order of solutions. One of the scientists on board here, David Holland with New York University, is gathering data. This is a scientific mission, full stop. But some of the data he is gathering, he is going to use to inform a discussion about a far-flung idea to build an underwater sea curtain, which could fend off the warm water from reaching
Right.
the glacier. I'm sure you've read about this. It's, anytime you get into geoengineering, you get into all kinds of controversy in the scientific community. But he's kind of agnostic on whether it should be built, but he'd like to get the data to see whether it would even be possible to imagine it. Because if you could keep that warm water from reaching that particularly vulnerable glacier, Thwaites, you might have a way of slowing down that melt. And that's on the order of, crazy solutions potentially, but it's something that we should at least be discussing, I think.
Yeah. In fact, I just put up on screen some coverage of that very work. And, there's a whole range of geoengineering questions. So this is a particularly interesting kind of micro, it's macro and micro at the same time, because this is a massive body of ice. So people can look for that work, search for the words like curtain and sea and Thwaites, and you'll find it. That relates to a question that came in here. Lynn Horton, can whatever Antarctica is losing in ice be regained, or does that require the Earth to stop warming, or will the continent shift and more of the glacial underpinning be revealed? A lot of questions. There are a lot of questions. Maybe you could talk about just the balance question. These ice sheets live or die based on the balance of snow falling and accreting and the edges deteriorating.
I'll take a run at that. I think that, and Miles, maybe you can chime in too here. Climate is like turning an aircraft carrier. You get a certain momentum built up, and it's very, it's not something that turns on a dime. Since the Industrial Revolution, and certainly continuing through 2026, where we are right now, we've been putting more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and that is a process that has built up a certain momentum. Yeah. And it's not something that can just be turned off like a tap. So I think that the scientists would tell you that that this is certainly a situation where we need to be thinking about what we can do to transition away from fossil fuels, but that the trends that we're seeing now with ice loss in a place like this are not something that we're going to be able to stop quickly. And that's just that's the physics, the geophysics of the situation. There are many questions in here that only addressed one of them. Does that require the Earth to stop warming? That's going to take a while, even if we really put our muscle behind it. It's not something that just turns off like a tap. Did I cover that, Miles? Anything you want to add?
No. I mean, carbon dioxide has got about a century lifespan in the atmosphere, and we have baked in an awful lot of warming and an awful lot of melting, no matter what we do. If we stopped, emitting the greenhouse gases tomorrow, we are going to have to reckon with this one way or another. So it's just this might be on the alarmist category, but it should be a reason to mobilize the world to do something about it.
Yeah, there was a paper that came out several years ago. It was a former student of a guy, Jeremy Bassis, who's one of the top scientists working on Antarctic questions. The paper's title was, let me see if I can find it here, From Ice Sheet to Main Street. And I want to find her name. And basically it's how do you connect this? All right, by the way, I love this scene.
Are you liking my landing? How am I doing?
The drone coming down to the deck. It's kind of cool. Let's just watch this for a second before. It's like the lunar lander.
Yeah.
It's like Mars.
Yeah.
Like
Houston, Thwaites base here. The Eagle has landed.
We have landed. It's so wild. So I'm glad it didn't land in the ocean.
Yeah. Well, tell me about it. I've that one I told you about in the Netherlands was the first of many I put in the drink, but eventually they got smart enough for me.
Yeah. So here, getting back to this, I think a core thing you've been talking about, Miles, is how do you link this to the solutions side? And the solution side includes not necessarily managed retreat, which is a whole body of science that's emerging, but just getting real about vulnerability reduction in communities on coastlines. And the paper was, from ice sheets to main streets, intermediaries connect climate scientists to coastal adaptation. Liz Ultrey, who's at Middlebury now, but she was in Michigan at the time. I think that's the key challenge. And a lot of that is just normalizing, again, given the likelihood, Miles, as you articulated, that we're dealing with centuries of sea level rise, for sure. The pace of it has deep uncertainties still, but getting communities to just normalize that the coastline they grew up with is not the coastline they'll get old with is something that feels like a key part of the storytelling. And hopefully there's I don't know what you feel about that. On your next stories list after you get back, is one of them about getting to a community that's trying to adjust to this reality?
Yeah, well, this is, you working for the Times in the same time frame we were doing early stories on climate for CNN. I used to always think, how much the greater challenge we faced in television, because in those days, where would we point the camera, right? We knew it was happening, but it was an invisible thing. And we used to joke about, we had this stack reel of polar bears. That's right. It was always, that's all we could come up with was polar bears as a visual for climate change. And I think, you talk about turning people off from a story, as much as you might like a polar bear, at a certain point, you're like, okay, tell me something I need to know. And sadly, we've come to a point where there's lots of things to point the camera at, lots of things that we can connect the dots scientifically to them, which, does, frankly, to be honest, make it a little easier from our perspective as visual journalists to tell the story. Mm-hmm. Of course, the problem is that could be a sign that we're a little late to the game. I don't know.
The sun just came out. Look at that.
Yes, indeed.
Cool. Let me make you guys. I'll make you guys bigger, and then we
might fly today. That could be good.
I think that'd be.
So walk us through a little bit next steps there. So there's various things that are going to be underway shortly.
Yeah, it's quite a sequence of events. You want to start off with
Sure. Well, right now, today, we had a meeting at 7:30 in the morning, our time, to talk about every day. There's a 7:30 meeting where we talk about the weather. We talk about the science agenda for the day. We are in a location right now where they're doing CTD testing. It's this big device that they drop over the side of the ship, and it's got this sort of what they call a rosette of pipes, tubes, and they fill those up with water. They take samples at different depths. They pull it up, and they can do all sorts of analysis of what's going on, under the water here. About 11 o'clock or noon our time, we're going to sail over to the edge of the ice sheet, and hopefully weather conditions will be such that they can put those helicopters together, and then they're going to go scout a location for the hot water drill camp, which is on the grounding line. Miles, why don't you talk a little bit more about that project? It's probably, I would say, our primary science mission is to do this hot water drill. Toss to you.
Yes. Well, the hot water drill is interesting. Drilling with hot water, quote unquote drilling, in a place like a glacier is a fast way to get some depth quickly. They have to get down about 1,000 meters, 3,000 feet, and they can do that in short order, much faster than you would with a typical kind of coring scenario. But they're not interested in the core; they just want to get to the water beneath the glacier to figure out what's going on there.
And to be clear, what's the grounding line? Explain what that is.
So the grounding line is the spot where the glacier, the land, and the ocean all meet, and that is where the scientific interest lies. What the water temperature is there is what is relevant to how fast it's melting, why it's melting, and whether that whole process could actually be accelerating, because you've got a glacier here that is grounded below sea level, on terrain below sea level. So you can imagine when you go to the beach, and you walk up to get on land and you're going up a hill. In this case, it goes downhill to the glacier, and the warm water accelerates downward to this grounding line spot. And whatever temperature is there, that's where the real critical melting is occurring.
Right. So bear in mind, you go down to where the water and the land meet, but there's an ice sheet on top of that, or an ice shelf, I should say, is the right term. And so that warmer water is melting that ice shelf from below. And they're really, really interested in getting some accurate temperature data about right there where the ice, the water, and the land all meet.
So, but Andy, you'll appreciate this. It's 45 sling loads of helicopters to get all their kit over there on the grounding line and get it set up. They scramble as quickly as they can to get it going. They have to shovel 45 tons of snow to melt it in order to send the hot water down. And then once they break through, they have about less than a day to get all their science done, because the hole will start closing in very quickly around them as it freezes back up. So they have, it's just like a complete scientific sprint. And all these scientists, and these are all leading people in all their realms, have to have all their gear ready to go, lined up, just ready to drop in. And they have a specific time in order to get their instrument, whether it's getting sediment, measuring the biology, looking for trace metals, and of course, temperature, current, salinity, you name it, they're going to try to get that down there. And then at the end, they're going to send one fiber optic line down, which will be frozen in, left behind with some solar arrays, car batteries, and a Starlink. And if they're lucky, this thing will give them maybe 2, maybe 3 years of continuous temperature data of what's going on at Thwaites to really give them a picture. This is what's missing. This is how they can truly give the world what would amount to at least a prediction, dare I say, a forecast as to what is going to happen with Thwaites as it melts. And what's interesting about it is, once they understand the physics here, which they don't get yet because they don't have enough data, they can apply this to the melt models and to the melt predictions for the entirety of Antarctica. And they can refine their predictions for the overall melt. And so this one drill hole has the potential to just revolutionize their understanding of glacier melt and its impact on sea level rise.
And I should say this, the folks who are going to be doing that, it's a joint project between the British Antarctic Survey and the Korea Polar Research Institute. The British, I think it's safe to say they pioneered the hot water drill. And
yeah, that's their baby.
They're
totally
the world's leading experts in how to do that. And the Koreans are coming on strong. So they are, I think there's 8 or 10 people out there, Miles. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's a heavy lift for
it's a lot.
Just a handful of guys.
Yeah, a lot of shoveling.
You're reminding me again of the North Pole when I was on the Arctic sea ice floating on the ocean there. And there was a critical moment when a piece of equipment broke, and these scientists, all with their multiple PhDs, were on the sea ice with their gloves off, trying to figure out how to salvage this one winch. That without it, the whole thing was going to die. So there is something weird about polar science where you can't just be stuck in your supercomputer program.
Exactly. It's well beyond theory when you're out here.
I'm going to show a little bit, and thanks for your time. I know you have another thing to do shortly, but here's some footage also of from that you just shot. Maybe you could just talk through a little bit about what we're seeing.
Well, that's that CTD sensor. Those are the rosettes. So basically, each of those canisters is designed to open and take a sample at a specific depth, and then close. So when they come up, they can go, okay, well, that was at that, that was 10 meters, that's 100 meters, et cetera. And that gives them all kinds of interesting data about salinity, temperature, all the things that would give them further understanding of the environment around the Thwaites Glacier. This was on approach. This wasn't too far from where we are, a little bit off in the distance. Right. But they're going to drop that thing in the water as often as they can to get, because there's a complete paucity of data out here. There's no sensors here. We are a long way from anywhere.
Right. Well, I'm just really thrilled that you're both there. There's a team from the New York Times on the ship as well. Are there any other journalists besides Ray and Changli, or are there others?
We are the two teams.
Merry little band of reporters out here.
But as I told the scientists when they were a little bit nervous about having journalists on board, I said, you got some of the best journalists in the world to cover this right here between Ray, Kate, and myself. So we're really happy to be here telling their story as it happens. And I think they're actually enjoying the opportunity to share their story in a way that they don't have to wait months for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And you're doing, I've seen your work on both CNN and PBS. You're independent, right? An independent.
Yes, team? We are independent players, Kate and I. And when we left CNN, we both went out on our own in our various endeavors, and sometimes doing projects together, sometimes separately. But the stuff we do for PBS NewsHour and the stuff we do for Nova is all through an independent production company, which gives us, a little more latitude to do some things that we might be constrained with if you're on staff back in the days at CNN. Well, to say the least. I mean, when you're at CNN, you are owned lock, stock, and barrel.
Yeah. So, well, that's a rare thing. You've kind of carved a niche that to maintain independence, but still do work that gets into these large audience platforms. So congratulations for the business model as well as the rest. This is not an easy time for journalists in any realm. From State Hall.
I would be remiss if I didn't give you a compliment for your niche and how well you've transitioned away from legacy media into being a really vocal and eloquent independent player. It's as I tell people, when I grew up, Walter Cronkite days, Huntley Brinkley, it was department store news consumption. Now we have boutiques, and we have to seek out boutiques of information that are trusted, and you're one of them. So thank you for doing what you do.
Wow. Well, I appreciate that. And there too, it's hard there. How do you find the audience? There's so many challenges, both in the storytelling and in the science. And what I'm trying to do now through Sustain What is just to build conversations and sort of momentum toward understanding, including understanding the complexity and the dimensions of these problems from ice sheets to Main Street. And it's just great to be able to connect with you there. Maybe we can do a reprise. So let's see, how far toward the end are you? Let's see, you have at least another month.
We're just starting.
we're 15 days into a 55-day mission. So
okay, why
don't you feel free to check back in if you got some time. We'd love to chat with you again, Andy. Maybe we'll let you know after if they've had success with the drill camp.
That sounds great. So good luck and stay safe and healthy and sane, and say hello to David Holland for me. Also, I haven't talked to him.
All right.
Yeah.
And
thank you.
He says hello, by the way. All right.
Great.
Thanks for having us.
Great to have you aboard. And this is Andy Revkin. This is Sustain What.
Bye-bye.
Take care. With Miles O'Brien and Kate Tobin live from Antarctica. That's a first for Sustain What, but not the last. Okay, hold on one second.